Pittsburgh Traffic Center. The Eden's settling in 35 minutes, Lake Cook Road to the junction. An hour 14 on the Kennedy inbound from O'Hare into the Burns Circle interchange. 50 minutes in on the Ike from Wolf Road to the Old Post Office, while the Dan Ryan is at 42 95th into the Burns Circle interchange. The Veteran slows up northbound between the Reagan and North Avenue. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast with Steve Williams.
A cloudy start this morning, then partly sunny by late this afternoon. Look for a high today of 70. Tonight, partly cloudy, low 61. Partly sunny, very nice day tomorrow, the high 71. And then partly sunny, terrific day on Saturday, high 74. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
Clouds everywhere, 66 at O'Hare. Some fog showing up in Romeoville and 65. Your next news update, 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by CharlesEquipment.com. Keeping you powered up, no matter what the conditions. CharlesEquipment.com.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. A little local lesson in economics. What is it that the Illinois Restaurant Association is assenting to? The same restaurant association headed by succubus Sam Toya, who capitulated to the lockdowns just a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. So there's this group of servers, waiters, waitresses, bartenders. They want the sub-minimum wage to stop. So they're at City Hall. They're demanding $16 an hour plus tips. And then other people are like, no, if you're getting paid $16 an hour, you shouldn't get tips.
Are wait staff around the city, are they supportive of this?
It's half and half. But members of the Restaurant Association told the city council yesterday that there needs to be an expansion of outdoor seating in Chicago so owners can handle the increase in labor costs. And here's Alderman Carlos Ramiro Rosa. Waiters are slaves. Did you know this?
This is a great day because we are closer than ever to passing one fair wage, ending this legacy of slavery here in the city of Chicago, and making sure that every single worker receives a full minimum wage with tips on top.
Carlos Ramirez Rosa is an out and proud socialist, and
he was wearing a mask yesterday too, but valiantly took it off to make that statement.
Yeah, I mean, he's socialist.
Courage.
Socialist doesn't really properly describe. I mean, he's really a Leninist, but right. So yeah,
I'm just saying if they get 16 bucks
the
an
legacy
hour.
of slavery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this was done in another state, in another city called Seattle, in a state called Washington. They implemented it, and then the lived experience of people in the service industry was, we want to go back to what we used to have, because it turned out if you start at this wage.
I'm not tipping, I can tell you that. There's no way in HE double hockey sticks I'm tipping.
And so what's the net result? The net result is they made less money than with a lower minimum wage and a tipping culture in Seattle. So this is why there was a hue and cry to roll it back.
Well, do you think that they studied or even looked into what happened in Seattle? Do you
Toy,
think they dug deep enough?
The Illinois Restaurant Association is such a good example of what happens in a kleptocracy, is that all of these trade associations, most private businesses, just become supine rent seekers, like the Illinois Restaurant Association, which is a disgrace. And by the way, Sam, you're going to trade, what is it, doubling the wage cost for the employer?
Almost. It's $9.
Yeah, almost doubling it, almost doubling the labor cost in exchange for some expanded outdoor seating. First of all, a lot of businesses don't have any outdoor seating. A lot of businesses can't do much to expand their outdoor seating. We have this thing in Chicago called winter.
Yeah, but remember sometimes they put the bubbles over.
Not
but that-
everybody
can't
can do that
afford that.
either.
That's a lot of money.
And so the point is, how does that make economic sense for most businesses in Illinois? I'm going to double your labor costs. Some will get as much more seating as they can outdoors for 4 months a year. Are you nuts? And the answer is yes. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Steve Moore, economist, Govzilla author. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, good morning.
What about you've seen this before, as we were just mentioning. This is, ever increasing minimum wage. And again, if you could just do this by edict and apparently have your trade association on board, then why be so stingy? I mean, let's get waiters and waitresses well into the six figures. Why don't we?
Well, a couple of comments on this. Number one, the other problem that happens when you get rid of tipping is, guess what happens to the quality of service?
Yeah,
Goes
right.
down,
That's
right?
true.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
This is why tipping is really important, because if you have a really good waiter or a restaurant or someone who's your valet parker or someone who does a job for you and does a really great job, you tip them. And that really does incentivize people to do a good job, because
Absolutely.
I've had tip jobs before, and so why would you not want to reward the people who do a great job? Whether it's a waiter or whether it's somebody who's doing a construction project for you or whatever that is. So
Amy,
I find that to be
Amy and I bring tip jars to all of our events.
Yeah. You want to take a picture? You got to give us
we
a
work
tip.
for tips.
everybody.
Yeah,
How many quarters are stuck in that tip jar?
Yeah.
But I mean, Stephen Moore, if you knew that the staff was making $16 to $20 an hour, would you want to tip anymore? Because I don't want to do it.
Yeah, no, that's the problem. You feel like you already, you paid for it. And by the way, just as a little bit of an aside, if you notice now that because everything's being paid for with, plastic, and you just slip your, iPhone, and you go to the Walgreens or something and you spend $12, and then they ask you, do you want to tip the service person? I'm like, wait a minute, they didn't do anything for me. All they did was, why should I tip this? But then you kind of feel guilty if you don't tip them. So I don't know what the protocol is here, but I don't know if you've noticed that everybody's asking for tips now. But the other point I wanted to make related to this is, we had an item in our hotline the other day that should be deeply disturbing to people, which is we looked at over the last 50 years what's happened to the percentage of teenagers that are working today. And you know what that trend is? Down, 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 down. So fewer, especially, by the way, millennials. Millennials didn't work when they were teenagers, which may explains why they turned out the way they are. But it used to be that about half of American teenagers had jobs. Today, it's only like 30%. And so that's a bad thing, because every single study shows that the earlier you start working in your life, the more successful you are. So having the kids at home at age 17 playing computer games, not having a job, is a really bad thing.
Well, and to your point, I mean, and from your hotline newsletter that you mentioned, we're now at 1.5 job openings for every unemployed worker.
Yeah. So the jobs are out there. And here's to connect the dots between of this with what we were talking about before. When they continue to raise the minimum wage, what they are doing is that they're pricing teenagers out of the workforce. So if you raise the minimum wage, and we shouldn't, but if you do, we should have a teenage minimum wage of maybe $5 an hour. Because I don't know do you guys remember the first job you ever had?
Yeah.
Oh, I
sure,
do.
of
I
course.
worked at Diamond Dave's
Yeah, I
at
do.
Randhurst Mall, and I got a work permit
Was that
to do that. I had a red shirt on, and it was a
gentleman's club?
no. It sounds
Diamond Days.
Doesn't it sound
Sounds like it.
the honestly
Yeah, but
the worst. No,
but, yeah,
Stephen Moore. It is
right.
the worst name for a Mexican restaurant in the world.
Mexican
Diamond Days.
restaurant?
It was a Mexican restaurant
Huh.
called Diamond Days.
That is a bad name.
Well,
Pretty
but
bad.
you got to admit, that first job, you learn job skills,
loved
you
it.
learn
Yep.
how to show up on time, and most people do remember their first job. I worked in a factory out in Northbrook, Illinois, and I hated that job, but I learned that, hey, I don't want to work in a factory my whole life. I never get serious.
Well, what did you do?
I want to work.
What kind of factory
I
work
was-
were you doing?
Oh, so what it was I was filling orders. So actually now they have robots that do this, but this was a mail order company. And so you'd get like people would say, I want 6 of these and 8 of these widgets and 12 of these. And you'd go through down the halls of the, merchandise, and you'd pick all the stuff up and put it in boxes and pack it and blah, blah, blah. And, I remember what I was paid back then was $2.10 an hour. But I feel like today I should go back to the guy who ran that company and say, thank you. You taught me a lot. You learn a lot more on a job than you do in school, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, you're going to get replaced by a robot again before all is said and done, probably. So,
I'm very nervous about that.
Full circle. I wanted to play this clip from Douglas Holtz-Inkin, who used to be a CBO or OMB director on Bidenomics, which they're still trying to sell, and they're having a tough time getting buyers. Take a listen.
A narrow few of favored classes get ahead. Everyone else pays higher prices. They go farther behind. That's why it's not generally popular. You got to have something that's broad-based, real growth for everybody, and they don't have anything like that. Everything they do picks winners and losers, and there are a lot of American losers out there who are not happy about it.
Pretty good summation.
Of Bidenomics?
Yeah.
Is that what you thought? Yeah. Well, my favorite example of that is, and this is such an outrage, is that there is a $380 billion, not million, folks, $380 billion that has been authorized for a green energy slush fund. And do you guys know who runs that green energy slush fund?
John Podesta.
John Podesta, who knows, John Podesta is a smart guy. He's a political guy. He doesn't know anything about business. And where do you think that money's going to go to? You think Dan, you think you and I are going to get any of that money?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's going to go to the friends, the donors of the Democratic Party. It's a slush fund. It's a cash in, cash out system. It's completely corrupt, and that's how Biden is spending. By the way, $380 billion. I work for one of the biggest conservative think tanks in America, the Heritage Foundation, and we have a nearly $100 million budget, which is a big budget, but $380 billion, that's like 3,000 Heritage Foundations. How are we ever going to compete with these people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to put money in the pockets of the Terry McAuliffes of the world. That was Green Energy Deals 1.0 back in the heady days of Solyndra. Now they're just scaling it, right? I mean, this is the same program. It's just which is always the approach. Same program, just make it bigger.
Yep. You know what? That's exactly. I was just saying the same thing the other day, which is that what you're really getting with Biden is Obama's third term. And so what happened, so people understand. So remember, people forget that Obama was a catastrophe when it came to the economy. It's the miracle of all miracles is how Obama got reelected. How it is that the Republicans lost that election.
2 words, Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney was a horrible candidate because there's no way in hell that Obama should have ever been reelected. The unemployment rate was still 8%, 4 years after the crisis. And anyway, so what happened was Obama came in and he spent all this money. Remember all the stimulus and all the shovel-ready.
Shovel-ready, yeah.
And none of it worked, and they spent like $400, $500 billion. And so what Biden came in is the left's excuse for why none of that worked. Remember what their excuse was, Dan?
Not big enough.
Yeah, we didn't spend enough. We didn't spend the barrel enough.
Never is.
We used to laugh at that. And then Biden comes in and spends 10 times more money than Obama did, and then now you see the effects of that too. So,
well, what's the seminal statement from Joe Obama's first 2 terms? It comes from the big guy himself. We need to keep spending money to prevent from going bankrupt.
Yeah,
exactly. And he's implementing it in his third term.
Saying we have to destroy capitalism to save it.
Yeah, exactly. Steve Moore, economist, Govzilla author. Thanks as always, Steve.
Okay, guys, have a great weekend. Take
care.
You
too, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Attention.